welcome to People Making Money, one of the Way to Wow shows. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and we are here every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, an hour in for Mountain and Central. And we talk about matters relating to careers, starting businesses, and maintaining your finances, building wealth. All those topics come together. This is the broadest based show we have in the Way to Wow shows network right now. And it's really designed to help you really advance yourself in terms of your finances. If you look back here for just a minute, you see the 3 pillars of attainment. We've got the pursuits pillar in green. It's hard to do this backwards. And we're talking about the finances realm, which is in the top of the pursuits pillar. So we're covering all things in that realm. Having said that, oftentimes the topics we talk about embrace other parts of the 3 pillars of attainment, sometimes relationships in the red there, and oftentimes, this is hard to do, there we go, oftentimes self, which is things like your identity, mindset, those sort of things, your health. So welcome and thank you very much for joining me. Today, I want to talk about a subject that I hope is timely. A lot of people are graduating from college right now, and also high school as well, and taking the next step in life, probably joining the workforce, or hopefully joining the workforce, right? So that you can support yourself. And also, as the summer approaches and kids are out of school, so I think people start thinking, maybe if I want to change my job, now is a good time to do that. It'll be less sort of disruption to my family's life. And so in line with that, I want to talk about a subject that I've addressed before, but not in as great a depth. So when we are looking at what we're going to do professionally or business-wise, the foundation for that really is our knowledge, skills, and experience. And I think most of us have a narrower view of what we can do than is actually the case. And the example I give for this is when I talk to Marines and soldiers, especially junior enlisted, that's E1 through E3. So oftentimes, and I hear this from the Marines, especially because part of the Marine Corps ethos is every Marine is a rifleman. I always used to joke, unless of course she's a rifle woman. Yeah, that's about as good as the humor gets, folks. But in any event, they'll say, "Oh, I'm a trigger puller. I'm a trigger puller. That's all I know how to do." Well, that's almost for sure not the case, number one. And number two, even if that's all you learn to do in the Marine Corps only made up a short portion of your life. And what about all the other experiences you've had in your life, your learning experiences, your job experiences, etc.? So I'm going to take you through the process that I document in my book, The 8 Deadly Sins of Job Hunting, on how to do a very thorough skills assessment. Okay. Now, when I use the term skills, I'm using that broadly to cover knowledge, skills, and assessment. Knowledge, skills, and experience. Okay. And typically in employment circles, you'll hear it called a skills assessment. I've never heard it called an experience assessment, frankly. And they may do a knowledge assessment, but I don't think they mean it in the same context that I'm going to be using it here today. So we're going to look at this broad base. I'm just going to use myself as an example, because that way, nobody says, "Oh, you're talking my private stuff." Don't have to worry about that. This is my private stuff. So the first thing I recommend you do in generating a skills assessment is that you create some kind of list of all the things that you've done and or accomplished. Okay, now I labeled mine a curriculum vitae or a curriculum vitae. I've heard it pronounced both ways. This is a fancy, typically academic term. I just used it because I mean, I'm not an academic. I just like the term. And on occasion, I have the need to sort of excerpt parts of it. So everything, this is absolutely comprehensive. Now, an actual curriculum vitae, typically it only covers academic work and publications and that sort of thing. You'll see mine is much more comprehensive than that. So what I start with in mine is my professional history. Okay, these are all the things I've done in terms of it starts out with businesses and occupations. So coming to the present, okay, the various companies that I've been a part of, and then here's my prior company, and it gives information. I write down briefly what is the company do, what were the activities it pursued. Okay, this is a nonprofit that I had. Okay, going back here, here's my company that I owned and ran for 20 years before I joined the Navy, and I go all the way back to when I was a teenager, and my friend Rick and I founded a film company that we called Carmel Cinema Enterprises. Carmel was for Carter, Mel was for Mel, right? So there it is, and we produced some short films. Okay, so you can see that in my case, I'm covering almost 50 years of background. Now, you know, I'm an old guy, so I have that to do. It doesn't matter how long a time period you cover. What I would recommend is you go back as far as you had any kind of employment, even if it was, you know, babysitting or a newspaper route or anything like that. Cover the full gamut. Okay, we're looking to be as absolutely comprehensive as possible. So this is what I could also have termed this sort of private sector, you know, and then because you'll see my next one is military service. Okay, so this is a whole history of what I did in the Navy, the different billets that I had, the different what are called collateral duties. These are things you do in addition to your regular duties. Here's the history of my promotions, okay, so that's my military service. And now, if you don't have military service, obviously you wouldn't put this in. Okay, and you'll see there are other categories now. Oh, and actually, I realized these are a little bit out of order. So I also put in accomplishments and representative projects. So within in this case, they all relate to my professional history, businesses and occupations. So these are particular accomplishments or projects of note. I know that's redundant, to, you know, that I you know, work to that I want to remember, because they will help me highlight various skills and experiences, knowledge that I have, you know, as I go on to the next steps. Okay, so here's accomplishments and representative projects in real estate. Here they are in terms of film and video. Okay, professional credits in theater. Now, professional credits are those for which I was paid and or in some way earned money. Okay, so here back in 1994, And I realize I haven't put in my shows here. I was the writer and speaker in a training video called Principles and Techniques of Appraisal. And I got royalties on that for years and years, for 20 years, I think, or pretty close to it, until it got, so outdated that it just wasn't, usable anymore. Okay. And in terms of professional credits in theater, so I had a paid position when I was in college doing graphic arts for the drama division. I also was a paid performer at Disneyland, and that. Okay. Now, I also put down here school and community credits. Okay. Again, this is for film and video and for theater. And these are things that I didn't get paid for, but they were still shows in which I was involved in one particular capacity or another. So, and in this case, again, I go all the way back to, in this case, I go back to 1972. That was when I did my first school play. I was Schroeder in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. And boy, was that embarrassing, because the girl who played Lucy actually had a crush on me. And that was, like I said, that was really embarrassing. And then here are accomplishments, military and veterans. Okay, so these are things that we want to remember about our experiences, about the things that we've done in particular, as opposed to the broader categories of our professional, our professional accomplishments. Of our professional life. And that way, as we go through, you'll see in the next part, we can sort of plug these in where they're relevant. Okay. All right. And then, next after that, the next section I have is professional licenses, certifications, and registrations. Okay. So I'm a professional fiduciary. That's my most recent one. I have a real estate license. I've got some security licenses. Those are really registrations. That's why, I call this professional licenses, certifications, and registrations. Those are all different. So when the Department of Real Estate here in California issues a real estate license, the individual is now considered a licensed professional. I talked about that, I believe it was last week. Okay. When FINRA issues a license, you're not really considered licensed. You're considered registered. That's just what the language is. Okay. Now, here's the thing. I used to have what's called a certified general real estate appraiser license. Although it's certified, what it is it's a license. So in point of fact, I guess I don't really have any certifications per se. Like those of you who may be in an industry like cybersecurity, there's all kinds of certifications that you get. And my understanding is those are actual certifications. They're certifying that you have mastered a particular set of knowledge. Okay. So anyway, collect all of those up here. Okay. Then after that, and you'll notice, by the way, I had them at one time in multiple states: New York, Colorado, Nevada, Washington, and California. Okay. So even if you have them in multiple states, make it a point to list all of those. Okay. Now, with respect to certifications, there may be different certifying bodies. Okay. So you'll see in a minute something that's more of a hobby for me. I have a certification from two different groups that it doesn't really give me any, greater ability to do anything. It's just two different groups certified me. So, you'll list them. I listed them both, and that's what I would encourage you to do. Okay. Next is professional affiliations and memberships. Okay. So, for many years, I was a candidate member of the American Society of Appraisers. I frankly never became a full member. I was a professional member of the National Speakers Association during that same time. And I co-founded something that my co-founder and I called the Finance Forum. This was really just a networking group, but you know what? we put it together, we organized it, we set up the meetings I think it was every month. It was a monthly group. We ran the meetings. So and so again, that's something worth noting in our professional in terms of the professional work that we've done. Next, and then you'll see here, I was also a chapter co-founder of the California Capitals Market, formerly known as the American Cash Flow Station Los Angeles chapter, whatever. So that group, I had the same co-founder for that group that then we eventually co-founded our own thing. So, and I just realized that's right. So I had two different stints working with the California Society of Certified Public Accountants. So anyway, that's that. Okay, then from there, I would go into academic positions. Okay, so these are teaching positions, and I start in this case in 1981 was my first formal teaching position. I was a religious school teacher, a Sunday school teacher. I started a real estate school at one point with a couple of partners. I was a professional fundraising trainer for a couple of years, and then I spent many years teaching for a company called Real Estate Trainers. And then this was sort of the biggest thing that I did in terms of academic work, and that is I became an instructor at UCLA Extension. And I have a very long-standing friend who's an actual professor at UCLA. Actually, he retired recently, and he used to tell me, because at one time we shared a classroom, I would say, well, no, you're my professional colleague. And I would be like, okay, no, I'm adult education, UCLA Extension. You're a no kidding, full professor, tenured professor. So, but it does, it doesn't really matter whether you're an instructor, whether you're I forget what they call it, an adjunct professor, whether you're just not just a teacher, whether you're a teacher, whatever it is, and in whatever context you do it. I encourage you, document as much of it as possible and list the kinds of subjects that you taught. Okay. All right. Then next I put volunteer teaching positions, because I have done quite a bit of volunteer teaching over the years. Okay, I was an instructor for Beverly Hills CPR Training Center. I was on the affiliate faculty for the Greater Los Angeles affiliate of the American Heart Association, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so even though I didn't get paid for them, and so technically they're not professional positions, or they're not professional positions, not technically, they're not professional positions, yet the level of training that I did was professional quality. And so I include them under, this overall topic here of professional history. Okay. So maybe I should call this, professional level history, or whatever you want to say. Look, this is for our own internal use, so nobody, I don't send this to anybody, and so they well, you weren't really, volunteer is not professional. Okay, whatever. But the reality is the kind of teaching work that I was doing as a volunteer was at the professional level. Okay. Next, I have academic qualifications. Okay, so here's a master's degree in library and information science. I got that in 2015. That's, as far as I can remember, the most recent academic qualification I have. The military training that I got. Here's an award that I got. My rabbinical ordination. And then different academic. This is an academic certification, basically online instructor development training. Okay, and so on and so on. Okay, so all the way back to, here's the bachelor's degree that I got, and I start with graduating high school. Okay, and again, with your academic qualifications, I would start with high school. Okay, or at least with high school. Now, if you went to a very competitive middle school or some kind of enriched middle school program, you may want to go back that far, especially if you're younger. It's perfectly legitimate. Okay. So I mean, I don't know about, which schools might potentially be considered, enriched middle schools, but certainly if you went to one that falls into that category, then I would definitely include that. Okay, so next are publications. These I could have called this, academic publications, although strictly speaking, not all of them are academic. So I've written a number of book reviews for the Journal of Military History. I've written for other things, Diplomatic Courier, Proceedings, which is the Naval Institute publication. And I also wrote articles for two different sets of encyclopedias, Russia at War and Germany, or actually three different encyclopedias, and then the Encyclopedia of World War I, sorry. So, and then I used to do something called appraisal briefs. It was a internet newsletter. I did that for 10 years, and other articles that I wrote. Okay, so list all of the publications. Now, my publication list, I think, is actually pretty small. I didn't put in here the blog that I wrote actively for many years, although I certainly could. I think that would be a legitimate thing to include, because there were times when I was writing 2 or 3 blog posts a week. Okay. And so whatever you've written, wherever it's been, note this in your publication. Okay. And then next are presentations. So this may apply more to academics than anybody else. I at one point presented a talk at the Patton and Poncho conference. I presented an academic paper there. Okay, but any kind of presentations that you've done, especially presentations you've done for work multiple times. Okay, so again, I could put in here, I've done, more suicide prevention presentations than I ever want to think about. I've done more on sexual assault prevention, trying to think the other ones we used to do in the military on a regular basis. I could put those in. I didn't include them, but I certainly could have. Okay, and then the last thing I have is community service and awards. So these are essentially volunteer positions, but they are important. They are something to take note of. So right now I'm involved with the Beverly Hills Unified School District, which is the district that the school my daughter goes to is in. I'm on the PTSA for her school, the PTA Council for the district, and I'm on something called the Behavior and Accountability Advisory Panel. Okay. But I mean, this is real work. And if you're doing any kind of volunteer work, by all means, list it. So I'm also the board chairman of Special Angel Project. I'm a member of the American Legion. I'm actually a member of a couple of other veterans organizations I should probably put in. Okay. Boy Scouts of America, you'll see I have a long history with, dating all the way back to 1968 when I became a Cub Scout, and all the way through to 2019. So I have a almost 50-year association with the Boy Scouts, all kinds of leadership positions, awards. And again, I encourage you to list those things. Here you can see, here's my awards as a Scouter, as a Boy Scout, as a Cub Scout. Okay. And then volunteer position within my synagogue, volunteer positions within the philanthropic community, the California Free Loan Association, the Jewish Federation Council, Cancer Society. Here was work that I did as a volunteer for Beverly Hills CPR Training Center. Okay, and I got, at the time, I got various commendations, the mayor's commendation for the city of Santa Monica, things like that. And then here's certified scuba diver. This is what I was referring to earlier. So I'm a certified scuba diver by both NAUI and Los Angeles County. Now, one doesn't give me any greater ability than the other. They both allow me to rent scuba equipment, basically. However, for people, especially people in Southern California, to have a certification from Los Angeles County is a big deal, okay? Because it's much harder to get than either NAUI or PADI, okay? And at the time I got NAUI was more difficult to get. Now PADI is the more difficult one to get. They have the more robust program, okay? But in any event, list all of these sort of, community service and awards. Okay, you may say, well, wait, what does a scuba certification have to do with community service or awards? Well, it's an award, I guess. It's a certification, whatever. I'm trying not to be, too, absolutely strict. But when you talk about community service, now I'm not a sports guy, so I was not involved in youth sports or anything like that. But certainly, if you are, that should go in this category. If you do Little League, Pop Warner football, if you're involved with some sort of running group, organized running group, if you're involved in any kind of exercise group, whatever they are, especially if you have any kind of leadership role, you want to document this, okay? So in the end, look, this is a 14-page list of all the things that I've done over my life. Okay, now again, I'm an old guy, so I've had 50 plus years to list all kinds of things. Okay, but and so yours may not be this long, and that's fine. Look, if you're a recent graduate from college, you haven't been around 50 years, let alone have 50 years of jobs and schooling and all of that. That doesn't matter. That's not what's important. What's important is you be as thorough as you can be for what you've done in your lifetime. That's what's important. This is not a contest between people as to who has the most accomplishments. And the only reason I showed you any of this stuff is to just get your mind thinking about what you've done in terms of knowledge, skills, and experience that you want to put in your list, okay? And there may be things that I've missed that I've never been involved with them, so it just doesn't occur to me to include them on the list. If in doubt, put it on the list. There's no reason not to. This is just for you. So, you don't have to worry about people saying, oh, what a braggart you are or something. Oh, forget that. Brag on yourself a little bit, just whatever you can put on here, put it on, okay? So make the list absolutely comprehensive. All right. Now, once you've got that list, okay, that's just step number one. Step number two is to make use of the list. Okay, now, this is how I do it. I'm a pretty analytical guy, if you will. Okay, so I did two different spreadsheets, if you will, to help me get thinking about knowledge, skills, and experience in terms of length of time. Okay, so in this particular spreadsheet over here, I've got year. Okay, now I was born in 1960. The first thing that I accomplished was actually in 1966. I was 6 years old. I built a miniature sukkah, okay, with my dad's help. Okay, and I got an award for building by the way, a sukkah is this hut you build during the Jewish holiday of Sukkot. Okay, and I'm not going to get into all the specifics, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But anyway, that was the first accomplishment I had. Okay, and so what I did is, using the 3 pillars of attainment, okay, I set out the categories or the realms that I was likely to have knowledge, skills, and experience in. And for me, that I see that as being in the pursuits pillar and in the relationships pillar. And I see I've got to let me correct something here. Okay, there we go. So, and as you might imagine, most of this is going to be in the pursuits category. Okay, so now the reason I've got some in the relationships category is there are certain accomplishments that I have in developing my relationship with God. and there are certain accomplishments I have in developing my relationships with friends and colleagues. Family might be, included in that as well. Okay, but for now, in any event, I just put it, in terms of friends and colleagues. And I just see here that now you're seeing the real me, because I see a mistake that I made, and I'm compelled to fix it. But anyway, I'll fix it later. Okay, so what I've done here then is I took my list of all those things that I just showed you, and I plugged them into a timeline to get a sense of how much time I have doing these different things. So I'm just going to focus on learning right now. Okay. So, started school in it was either 66 or 67. That doesn't really matter so much. But I went to El Rancho School. That was a great school I went to. Hope School, was a great school. Laguna Blanca is where I went to middle school. And then I went to San Marcos High School and graduated in 1978. That was my first sort of academic achievement. And if you recall from the list I showed you, that was the first thing I put there. Okay. And then I went to college and I got my Bachelor of Science in Architecture in 1983. Okay. And just a couple of years later, I started teaching for real estate trainers. Okay. And I taught for real estate trainers all the way through to 2000 and all the way through 2005. I began teaching for UCLA Extension in 2003. Okay. And then at the end of 2005, that was when I got my second degree, a Master of Religious Studies in Aish Torah. But see, all of this counts as years of experience in teaching and frankly in studying, okay? Because as a teacher, we study as well to keep up with our topic, okay? And so then notice that a few years later in 2009, I started another academic program, ending up with my getting a Master's of Library and Information Science from San Jose State. So again, I was engaged as a student during this time. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute, were you a student full-time? No, I wasn't, but that doesn't matter. I spent a considerable amount of time studying, being in a master's program, and in the end, that's what matters. Okay, now, over here, these are sort of learning pursuits. So I took clarinet lessons for many years. I ended up playing in an orchestra for the musical Oliver. Okay, and here's other academic pursuits that I pursued over the years, including I started a reading program back in 2004 where I read 50 books a year. I read somewhere that qualifies you as an avid reader. Okay, and I've made it a point to qualify as an avid reader every year since then. So I've been doing that now for almost 20 years. Okay, and then over here, these are my civilian professional pursuits, different milestones that came from that came from my list. Okay, and here you can see where I joined the Navy. Here I was in the Navy active duty, and here I am in the Navy Reserve, while I have a parallel track in the private sector. Okay, and here I am at 2022. That's the most recent year completed. So you can see I've got some updating to do here. I haven't filled some of this stuff in, and that's fine. So in any event, this was the first thing I did in terms of understanding what kind of knowledge, skills, and experience do I have as it relates to the number of years. Okay, so I have let's see, starting in 1978, going through to 2022. So that's 44 years, if my math is correct, minus perhaps 1, 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, I did have some professional activities here. So I have 44 years of professional experience, of which all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I spent 5. Actually, it's more like almost 6 years on active duty with the Navy. Okay, so 38 years of private sector professional experience, and a total of, see, I joined the Navy in 2006, and in 16 years of Navy experience, okay, between when I was commissioned and when I was honorably discharged. And you can see in here, I filled in different jobs that I've had, different awards that I've gotten, etc. Okay, and this is all by way of understanding. So if you'll notice, there's a color scheme here. Anytime a color is darker, that's a year in which something important happened. So here I got promoted to lieutenant. Let's see, here I got promoted to lieutenant commander. Okay, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, and that's what I mean, I like the color coding. For me, it makes it easier for me to keep track of things. You can do this however you want. And by the way, you don't need to do this in a spreadsheet. You could do this on a pad of paper, just sort of drawing squares like this, or you could even draw circles. The shape doesn't matter. Okay, but the idea is to present to yourself visually the extent of your knowledge, skills, and experience. To do this first. This is a natural extension of the list that you created, okay? And it's going to get you to think more deeply. Now, if you were to compare this to my list, you would see, for example, there's nowhere in there that I say I took clarinet lessons. This was to get me thinking about more stuff that I've done. So, playing in an orchestra. I mean, I don't know that necessarily has any impact on my professional direction or anything like that. But again, put these things in. They're there to get you thinking, to get your brain cells moving, coming up with ideas. What do I want to do? What am I qualified to do? Those sorts of things. Okay. All right. So this is step number 2, if you will. Start quantifying in terms of years your knowledge, skills, and experience. Then this is really the end goal. And it's to create a chart based on soft skills and hard skills and how long you've had them. And oh gosh, there goes Siri again. Okay, and now mine is this isn't, well, I guess that's actually, I think it's pretty close to being up to date. Now, what I did was, in looking at my list and in looking at this chronology that I put together, I sifted out the knowledge, skills, and experience that I have. Now, and again, I mentioned I call these just skills because it's called a skills assessment. But the fact that some of the skill came through study doesn't delegitimize the fact that they're a skill. Okay, so let's take this one: education, teaching, and training, and public speaking. I grouped those all together because I feel that those are a similar group of skills: the ability to help people understand things, present ideas in a way that people can comprehend them, etc. Okay, and what I did is each number here represents a year. Okay, so this is showing that I've got 38 years in teaching, education, teaching and training, and public speaking. Okay, so why is this important? Well, you may have started as a teenager. Maybe you were coaching some kind of sports league, okay, or some kind of sports team. Maybe you've been doing that since you were, 15, okay, and you've continued to do that, and now here you are graduating from college. So now you're probably around 22, 23. You already have 8 years of experience in this particular skill. And this is, now you notice I put soft skills first. The reality is most people would agree, I think, for whatever that's worth, that the extent of your success will be more due to your soft skills than your hard skills. That's just the way it goes. You'll go farther based on your soft skills than your hard skills. Okay, so that's why I prioritize these in my list. So this is the one I have the most experience doing. Okay, and actually I think it probably is a couple years short, because I taught children's theater for many years, starting when I was 13 or 14. Yeah, 13. So I have, arguably 50 years of experience in teaching and training and education, et cetera. Okay. All right. So that's one. The next one is team building, leadership, and leadership development and mentoring. Okay. Again, all of that, I group all of those together. I mean, some people would put them individually, but they all speak to the same ability, which is to form a team, mold a team, lead a team, be a good follower. All of that is important. Okay. And in that case, I've got what looks like 32 years. Now, again, this is not 100% up to date. It doesn't matter. But you can see there's different colors. That's because my experience was developed in a different area. So the gray is civilian professional, the blue is the Navy, purple is nonprofit work, green here in this case is the Boy Scouts. Okay, and then over here yellow and red is more sort of academic work. Okay, so okay, next is operations management, problem solving, and troubleshooting. So this is not so much managing people or working with people per se. It's working more with the larger organization. Okay, now you could arguably put these together and make it, a longer thing, but I separated the skills out. I find generally those two skills are looked at differently. Okay. Now, by the way, you say, wait, how could you have, 38 years of education, teacher and training, and 32 years of team building and leadership? Altogether, that's 70 years. You're only 62 years old. Well, we're not only gaining knowledge, skills and experience in only, one at a time. Most of the time, we're developing several of them together. Okay, so if you are teaching, you may very well be learning some leadership skills as well. And in fact, in order to run a classroom well, you have, a teacher has to be able to keep students focused, especially if they're young students, grade school through high school. Keep them focused, keep them disciplined. Okay, and that is as much a leadership function as it is a teaching function. Okay, so you're working on and developing both of those skills at the same time. So it's perfectly legitimate to say that, you have 30 years of teaching experience and, 25 years of leadership experience, or however, whatever you're listing your skills as. Okay. And then I have negotiations here. I put that as a separate skill. Okay. Organizational development. Okay. Now let's look at some of the hard skills just to sort of round this out. So here's copywriting, writing, editing, and newsletters. Okay. So I show here that I've got, looks like, yeah, I've got 22 years doing that. Okay. Now, again, I didn't write full time. It doesn't matter. Okay. I was writing consistently. So here's my blog that I mentioned. Again, it's not in the list, but by doing these, we realize, hey, there's other things that I've done. And the most important thing is that this be the most comprehensive document, okay, that you create. So the other two are helping you get to this one, which is the most complete. All right. So I blogged, 1 to 3 posts a week for, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Okay. So that's a lot of writing experience. It wasn't the only thing that I did those 6 years, but it was a substantial amount of writing. Okay. At the same time, Well, not the same time, but so next to this, in terms of hard skills, are film, theater, and music. So I've been involved in film, theater, and music in one way or another for 22 years, it looks like. Okay. Event planning and management, logistics. Okay. Been involved with that for 15 years. Okay. So that's what I call creative hard skills. Okay. And then over here are analytical hard skills. Okay. So budgeting and financial analysis, 23 years. Okay. Administration, meaning just sort of running things and make sure they go smoothly, not from a leadership standpoint necessarily, but just like making sure the bills got paid and the things got repaired or whatever that is. Okay. So administration, again, about 23 years. Okay. Real estate. Now, technically, real estate is not a skill. It's an industry, if you will. Nonetheless, I think it's important to recognize industries in which you have a long period of time of involvement. Okay, my involvement in the real estate industry is 22 years, evidently. And then just business in general, business analysis, management and strategy, again, 20 years, 20 years doing research and data analysis, 20 years doing new business development, project management, valuations. Okay. And then over here, notice there's actually very little professional experience in these last two categories. Okay. So here is librarianship, information management, and knowledge management. So I was the librarian for a law library for a couple of years, but the rest of the time is my own personal library, managing that library. Now I have a pretty big personal library, over 3,000 volumes, and it's all shelved. Like, people come to my house and they look in the library and they're like, wow, you really do have a library. Okay. So it's a library, and I've got an online catalog and all kinds of stuff. So I take it very seriously. And then I got an MLIS so this is partly professional, partly sort of personal involvement, and part of it is academic. Okay. And then over here, this is nonprofit management, fundraising, and grant writing. And again, notice that there's 3 years where I was a professional fundraiser, meaning I was getting paid to be a fundraiser. But most of my time was as a volunteer, whether it was for the Los Angeles Jewish Federation, the Jewish Free Loan, or the Boy Scouts of America. And again, this isn't 100% up to date. If you recall, there's some other things from my CV that I need to add on to this, my work with Special Angel, and the PTAs, et cetera. Okay. So, and notice that I've got 16 years of involvement in, nonprofit management and fundraising, et cetera. Okay. Now, how does this help me? I mean, professionally, frankly, I don't want to be a professional fundraiser. Okay. Where it did help me was, I'm involved with my daughter's school, and they were looking for people to do things. And when they found out that I had a lot of years fundraising, and they said to me and my partner, Nathan, I said, you guys have all the experience fundraising. We hate doing it. You get to do it. Right. And look, it's my pleasure. I have the skill to do it, and it's for a good cause. It's for my daughter's school and for her benefit and the benefit of all the other children and parents, in the school. And so, great. Okay, so what you've got here now, and this was a promise I made, but I said, you have more knowledge, skills, and experience than you think. Okay. This is what helps you find out where your knowledge, skills, and experience is. And I bet you, if you go through this process, you will find, wow, I never really thought about that. Okay. It just didn't occur to me. But yeah, I've done this thing and I've done that thing, and I've got leadership here, and I've got nonprofit work here, and I did, budget analysis when I was involved with this thing, and whatever it is, you will uncover it. So that was the first thing I said is, you have knowledge, skills, and experience that you don't realize you have. And now you've got the backup to prove it, right? So if you were to say, I've got 16 years of experience working with nonprofits, well, you've actually documented it here, because and you've got the whole trail of information to prove it, right? Because you started with the list where you listed the dates that you did the thing, and then you put it into a graphical form. So there's no doubting, either self-doubting or having other people cast doubts on your knowledge, skills, and experience. Okay. And by the way, if you're going into a meeting to discuss a job and you're concerned, there may be some questions like, if you're a young person, let's say I mentioned getting out of college, or you're a young person coming out of the military, and you're claiming, let's say, 7 years of leadership experience, and you walk into the office, and you look, and the person show you, oh, thank you for coming, that kind of thing, right? And they've got that look on your face like, oh, well, this person's a liar. This person said he has, 7 years of leadership experience. He doesn't even look 17 years old, right? So they're gonna ask you, they're gonna key in on things where they think maybe you have, we used to call it gilding the lily, lied, right? And I would take a copy of this with you, not to show to them, just to jog your memory, right? To say, well, you have, let's see, what did I say here? Okay, you have 32 years of experience in leadership? Well, yes, I do. So I ran my own business for 20 years, and I led a team of whatever it was, X number of people, a team of anywhere from 2 to 10 people in my business, doing various tasks and duties, whether it was sales or whether it was appraising or whatever it was. And during that time, by the way, I also was involved with a couple of CPR training organizations in a leadership role. And then after that, I joined the Navy, and I was in the Navy for whatever it is, 16 years. I was an officer in the Navy, and as such, I was in a leadership role often. Although as a chaplain, my leadership role was more from an example position than a command position. But in today's civilian world, it seems to me, and tell me if you disagree, that leading by example is at least as important as leading by so-called command. Bang. Question answered, doubts dispelled, because you've got the facts right there. And you've got this sheet that you're going to bring in a folder with a fresh copy of your resume, and maybe some other things, okay? And there's nothing wrong with, and the person may say, well, what is that you've got there? Oh, these are my notes where I've documented my skills, knowledge, skills, and experience in the different areas in which I have them. And this is just to, look, I have a lot of knowledge, skills, and experience, and this is to make sure I can answer your questions succinctly and completely. Wow. Right? That's going to blow the person away that you've been this prepared, and that you're this serious about your career, your professional development. Okay. So this is an excellent tool to bring into your meeting. Now, so that's one way to use it. That's sort of advanced in the job search process. At the beginning of the process, it's to help you understand, what can I do and what do I want to do? Okay. Now I've talked about this in previous shows. There's something I call your unique value proposition, your UVP. Your UVP is where your skills and knowledge and experience meet your interest and market demand. If you can picture 3 concentric circles, there's an area where all 3 overlap. And that is the place where you will find the most lucrative, most enjoyable professional experience based on what you can do. Okay, so this is going to help you determine what goes in that knowledge, skills, and experience circle. It'll also give you the opportunity. You can start looking at jobs and businesses that require these various skills. Okay, so obviously over here, nonprofit, maybe you want to work for a nonprofit. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with working for a nonprofit. It's a great thing to do. And if you're very dedicated in it, you can do very well financially. There's lots of large foundations out there where top salaries are in the seven figures if you're willing to, make that climb. But even in ones that are not, that big and that well funded, you can make six figures working for a nonprofit. Okay, so you'll see. Well, I do have skills there. I also have leadership skills, which are important in nonprofits. I have event planning and management skills. Wow, I've got, arguably the three most important skills in order to work in nonprofits. I also really like the idea of doing something good as part of my professional pursuits. Okay. Now, by the way, you may have more experience in another category. Like in my case, I've got more experience in teaching and training, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to use that in your professional life. Okay. It may be just sort of I can't think of the word, but just some experience that you've gained just along the way. It's not the thing that you like doing the most, but you do it and you're good at it. Okay, so good. Now, by the way, it may be that this is where you want to focus it. Well, I've got the most experience here. I really enjoy doing this. You do some research. Wow, there is a lot of economic opportunity in education and teaching and training and public speaking. Maybe this is where I want to go. Okay. Now, the other thing that you can use this for as you're investigating potential professions, careers, businesses is, let's say you've got education and teaching and training as your skill, you also like it, and you see that it's lucrative. What I would encourage you to do then is, okay, what makes it lucrative? Does just being a good educator make it lucrative? Or does it have to be paired with some other skill, like the ability to develop new business? Okay, so this skill right here, and by the way, maybe new business development belongs in soft skills as I'm looking at this. These are not hard and fast categories by any stretch of the imagination. Okay. But now that I'm looking at it, probably new business development does go over here. Okay. So this will help you see, do I have the group of skills I need to have the level of success that I want in the profession that I think I want to pursue? Okay. So for the college grads, you may be getting out with a degree in whatever subject. Just because you have a degree in that subject does not mean you have to practice in it. Okay. My degree is in architecture. As you see here, here's architecture. I have 5 years. I did 5 years of architecture school basically, and I have about half of that. I have some professional experience working for. It was actually a builder. Okay. But you see, it ended here. I never went on and practiced architecture. I never became a licensed architect. I did, however, get very involved in real estate, and my academic background in architecture improved my ability to be successful in real estate. Okay, so again, this gives you the opportunity to kind of shift back and forth. Do I like this? Do I like that? What do I want to look into? Who do I want to talk to? Okay, I've done a show on doing what I call informationals or informational interviews, talking to people about what a particular profession is like. If you're not sure what you want to do, absolutely do that. Don't just jump into a profession thinking, oh, this will be good. Okay, find out what you really are going to be doing in that career before you jump in, because you may find out, wow, this is not what I thought it was going to be. This is not what I want to do. And rather than wasting your time going off on some career path that you think, oh, it's going to go like this, and all of a sudden you're like, it's like, oh no, now I got to come back and start over again or something. Okay, this will help you do your research as well. So if any of those other topics are of interest to you, how to do informationals, how to find out your UVP, please go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@thewaytowwow. And you'll see all of the shows that I've done over the last few years, and find the ones on those particular topics. I encourage you to watch them. And let me go ahead and close out of this now. So we'll go back here. If you have any questions, by all means, get in touch with me. In the show notes, it'll have my email address, my social media sites. You can drop a comment in social media. You can send me an email. If you want a copy of any of these charts that I did for you, so you can kind of see how they look, happy to send you one of those, to help you create your own. But what I would say is get started on it. Now, I did not create the list or the charts in one day, not at all. They've been created and enhanced over years, frankly. So you'll do your best shot, be as comprehensive as you can, and then just review it periodically, maybe every 3 months, maybe every 6 months, maybe every year. Okay, just go and update it each year to make sure, and don't just update it based on what happened in the previous year. Look back and see, did I leave something out? What's missing here? Okay, and the more you can add to it, the more layers you can put on it, the better a tool it will be for you, and the better it will help you figure out, what do I want to do? What will I enjoy doing? What will I be successful doing? And how can I drive that success forward? Well, so we're actually over time here by a few minutes. So thanks for hanging in with me over time. That's our show for today. So if you know someone who's struggling with their professional life, they're not happy with what they're doing, or they're recently out of college or recently out of the military, and they just seem to have a very limited view of what they can do here in the civilian world, do them a favor and send them a link to this show, so that maybe it'll help them kind of broaden their perspective and really find something that'll be a much more satisfying direction for them than they might otherwise thought of. Okay, and let them know, hey, there's this guy Kevin, and he's probably a little bit meshuggah, as we say in Yiddish, a little bit crazy, but he'll answer your questions if you send him a note. I'm more than happy to do that. So there you go, getting your skills assessment done, and in a very, very deep dive. So thank you very much for joining me today. I do hope you enjoyed the show, and that you also got something valuable out of it. This has been People Making Money, one of the Way to Wow shows. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel. We are here every Wednesday, 12:30 p.m. Pacific, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, an hour in for the other 2 time zones. Next week on Monday is my show, Trusts and Estates Weekly, and that begins at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. That's a very specific show on how you can work in the trusts and estates and probate realm, who you'll be working with, what kinds of things you'll be doing, how to work with various professionals, how to enhance your finances, and also how to use this in your own life to make sure that your wealth is protected and it can be built in the best way possible. So that's on Monday. Tuesday is Business Lessons from the Military, starting at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. And we look at military doctrine, history, and great leaders, and how we can take what can be learned from them and apply it to our businesses or the companies or organizations for which we work. So, and then again, next week on Wednesday is the next edition of this show. So I invite you to tune in all 3 days. You can always go to Eventbrite, get a free ticket to join me live and ask me questions. Happy to have you with me. And that is all for today. So I wish you a great rest of the week. To my fellow Jews out there, wishing you a Chag Sameach, a holiday of joy starting tomorrow night. It's the holiday of Shavuos. It commemorates the giving of the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai. And most people think of it as the cheesecake holiday. And if you don't know why, send me a message or talk to your Jewish friends, and they should be able to explain it to you. And then also wishing you coming up a meaningful and restorative Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day, as many of you may know, celebrates those people who have given their lives for the sake of our country. So it's not actually a day to honor veterans. That's Veterans Day in November. And it's not a day to honor active duty people. That's Armed Forces Day, which is in, I think it's June or July. I forget exactly. This is to honor those who have lost their lives. Nonetheless, as a military person myself, it did always make me feel appreciated when one of my fellow citizens would acknowledge my service, whether it was Memorial Day, Veterans Day, or Armed Forces Day. Didn't matter, but just a little bit of knowledge to understand more broadly what's going on with these various holidays. So again, wishing you a wonderful rest of the week, and looking forward to seeing you next week. And signing off, I always have to say, Marie, darling, you are and ever will be my belle. All the best, folks.